Thank y'all for inviting me. Ooh, that's loud. Um, I'm used to yelling because we don't have this mics in our office. So, Westview, how many of you are familiar with Westview Boys Home? Quite a few of you. Westview Boys Home was established in Hollis, Oklahoma in 1956. Um, the original founding board members started putting together resources to develop a ranch style living program for young men. Their philosophy was that young men that learn go out and farm and ranch and learn how to work can change the aspect of their life. Um, they originally started to put it in Frederick, Oklahoma, which is about an hour and 20 minutes um, southeast of us, near Tipton Children's Home. And well, the Westview School District consolidated with another school. At that time, Harmon County had 14 school districts, small one-room schools, two-room schools. Well, Westview was a small school, and they dwindled, so they consolidated with Arnett School District, which is a little rural school out in the country. And they invited our board of directors over to tour their facilities and made a deal with them. So Westview became Westview because they bought Westview School. And the original property they started out with was 11 acres. We had a 2-classroom school building with a cafeteria, WPA gym, and 1 residence on the 11 acres. They bought that in 56. They went into operation. They had around 54 boys living in the school building after they remodeled it. They had 2 dorm rooms, and then they had living quarters for house parents, our caregivers, as we call them now. And the administration office, everything was right there. Over the time span, they decided that what they were doing was not adequate. So they built 2 houses on the original property. Two, the 2 on the original property are about 4,600 square feet homes with 5 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms for the boys, and then living quarters. Um, they built those 2 properties in 63, and as the ranch and farm expanded, they added houses. So now at this time and date, we have 6 houses on our campus. We have 3 locations in Harmon County. We have a 1,000-acre ranch that we run our cattle operation through north of town, about 14 miles. And that's where our boys live. We have 3 houses up there. That's where our boys live. That's their primary residence. Southwest of town, about 2 miles, we have our 560-acre farm. The farm was donated to us by Maddie Malloy. When she passed away, she had no children, and her husband had passed earlier. And so she donated us the farm. So we have 1 house named after her. But anyway, we built a house there in 75, and that is now our relief house. So our caregiving staff works 21 days on and 7 days off. And the reason we do this is because being a caregiver for somebody else's children that come from very difficult places, we call them kids from hard places, is challenging, not only physically, but mentally and emotionally. So it takes our caregivers about 6.5 days to regenerate to be able to get back into the trenches and doing what they're doing. And then our relief, they get to work with all the boys. We move them from one campus to another, and relief picks up where they kind of give the boys a breather. They don't work on things as hard as they do at home. They kind of give them a break so we can get back in and get to going again. We have 4 couples, 3 primary and 1 relief. We have 1 couple of Steve and Tammy Young. I was going to show you pictures of them, but Steve and Tammy Young have been with us almost 6 years. Steve is a retired Marine, and he's a Sunset School of Preaching graduate. He preached in Seymour, Texas for a little while, and then he was the chaplain at the Medicine Park Prison. for about 4 years. We hired him from the prison. I've known Steve and Tammy for 20 years, 25 years. Um, and then we have Ray and Tammy is a mom. That's what she's done her entire life. They did foster care in their own home while he was preaching in Seymour. He started out his career at Tipton Home. Then he went to Sunny Glen Children's Home in South Texas, down San Benito, way down there. And then made his transition through ministry and wound up with us. Um, we have Ray and Geneva Owens. They run Sweetwater House. Steve and Tammy run Overstreet. Um, Ray is a retired firefighter, EMT. He was a captain in the fire department when he retired, and he is my older brother, so my older brother works for me, so that's been an experience. He's 6 years my elder, so that will explain that it's a little challenging sometimes. But anyway, he and his wife is a seamstress and a stay-at-home mom as well. And and Ray he is a Whites Ferry Road preaching school graduate. I don't know if there's some of you may not have ever heard of Whites Ferry Road, but he went to school there when he come right out of high school, right after they got married. Then we have Donnie and Beverly Lee, and they live in our Mitchell house. These are our 3 full-time primary house parents. Donnie is a retired Army captain, and he was a tank commander, so we get a lot of tank stories. And Beverly he's also has a bachelor's degree in music, which was kind of an odd mix, go from music to tank commander. And then his wife has a bachelor's degree in history. And they're an older couple. He was an elder of the church in Texhoma, one of the churches there in Texhoma when he came to us. They've been with us the longest, almost 7 years. They're all older couples. They start at about 50 and go to about 63, 64. Our youngest couple is our relief, and it's Robbie and Angeline Garrett. This couple, I've known Robbie and Angeline since they were probably 15, 16 years old. They grew up in the Tipton home together. Robbie went to the home at 8 years old, at 5 years old. He's 5, and he graduated from high school there. So, and Angeline was there for a while and then had to leave. She was a troublemaker. But anyway, those 2 have been with us, and they have 3 of their own children, but they are a relief, and they have an understanding, a better understanding of where our boys come from. They do phenomenal work. Tell you a little bit about me. I've been doing this for 25 years. I've been involved in it since I was about 3. My mom and dad were foster parents in California when I was born. And when they moved out here, they quit foster care for a while. And 1979, they moved to Westview Boys Home and were house parents there for 10 years, from 79 to 89. So I grew up there. I was 16 when we moved there, so I lived it with the boys. And then I worked on the farm for a little while, for about 5.5 years, and then I left the work. And my wife and I in 98 went to work for Tipton Children's Home. And the executive director there cornered me and asked me to come to work because I was experienced. And I said, well, we decided to make the transition, so we did. I got 12 girls, and I worked with boys. That's like throwing somebody to the wolves. Girls, my wife loves girls because, the girls, they get mad, they go to their room, and they sulk for a little while, and you don't see them all day, and then they come back. But we did that for 5.5 years, and then I made my transition to Sunny Glen Children's Home in San Benito. I was the campus director there for 3.5 years and helped build a new campus down there. I met Ron Bruner, which is our executive director, which has been He is our longest tenured director. He's been there 21 years. He plans on doing 4 more years. So it'll be 25 years he's planning on staying with Westview. And I'll explain why he's sticking it out in another 4 years because we got a lot of good things going. But anyway, he invited me down to start a transitional program at Westview in 2007. So my wife and I moved down there. We started a transition program. We did that for about 3 years and handed it off to somebody else. And I moved into the office as the campus manager at that time. And my wife works in the front. The transition program didn't work in Hollis. Do y'all know where Hollis is? Any clue? A lot of people don't. Unless you're going to Colorado, a lot of people drive through going to Colorado. We are in the farthest southwest corner of Oklahoma you can find. We are 34 miles west of Altus. Everybody know where Altus is? We're about 34 miles on west of Altus. Where I live on the old campus in one of the old houses. We turned those 2 houses there into administrative housing. I'm a mile from the Texas line where I live. So, but anyway, we started working on some things and changing some things because the way we did childcare back 20 years ago doesn't work now. We are working with totally different children, and we've learned a lot. So what we are doing right now is we have a program called Trust-Based Relational Intervention. Has anybody ever heard of that? That is a program that was developed by Dr. Karen Purvis at TCU, which the Institute of Child Development at TCU is now named after because she was one of the founding people that developed the Institute. What we do now is we've learned what trauma does to a child. And some of the kids that we work with, their trauma started in utero while mama was carrying them, okay? So we study that, and we talk about the brain and how it's developed and so on and so forth. I went to school in 2008 with Dr. Purvis, and it was the hardest class I ever took. It was 11 weeks long, and I was brain dead by the time I got back learning this. So I'm a TBRI practitioner for TCU, and we went ahead and we've got 2 more on our campus. So we do that kind of stuff, and all our caregivers and everybody that draws a paycheck on our campus is TBRI trained, because there's a language you use every day that everybody needs to speak it. But what we're doing is we changed our program, and this is what we've been doing for about 4 years now. We do have an office now in Oklahoma City that is called Westview Family Services. It's a program now that we do counseling through. Our counselor travels to Oklahoma City and visits with 7 families up there right now that are not tied to our residential program. Their kids are not here. We're keeping their kids at home. So we created Westview Family Services because we've seen a need to try, because I get an average of 5 to 6 phone calls a day about somebody needing help with their child or wanting to put their child somewhere. And some of them we just want help. So, and we didn't have that help. And there's not a lot of that help in Oklahoma. It's really sad that we don't, but we don't have a lot of that help. So we created a place to do that. So Westview Family Services is in Oklahoma City, and we operate out of our home office. So we have 2 locations that we can do family therapy. Our counselor works up there. We go up there. We are actually training parents, TBRI. We had a missionary from overseas that adopted children from where they were doing their mission field. And their oldest son, they adopted him at birth. I mean, at birth. And this young man, he was really a handful at 15 years old, and he's 260 pounds. And he was a handful because his brain didn't develop right. Okay. His mother took abuse from dad every day The entire 9 months she carried him every day because she was pregnant and he didn't want the child. That's in a very abusive man culture where they were at. And I can't divulge all that information because of. So this family come home and they reached out to us. So we drove and spent 8 hours on a Saturday for 4 Saturdays teaching them TBRI. But before we started teaching mom and dad, our counselor started teaching him. We do little things called like redos. And would you like to try that again? Okay, a redo. This young man uses redos like money. I mean, it's amazing. He'll mess up instantaneously. He'll say, can I redo? Can I try that again? And that's sure. And he goes back and he does it right. So what we're doing with kids right now, when everything's good and they're happy, we do what we call nurture groups, and we teach life value scripts to these kids. One of the ones we use a lot on our campus is no hurts. And we do this in play because that's what it's all about. Because when you can get a kid to play, there's no fear. Fear can't linger in the same place as play. Okay? Now, a lot of people disagree with me because you get on a roller coaster, it's the scariest thing you ever did. Well, it's not scary. It's your adrenaline jumping. That's the good chemicals. That's dopamine and all that stuff. That's good chemical. Fear is totally different. And when our kids come into this world that have been abused and neglected and went through a horrible pregnancy or been mom doing drugs and drinking and doing all this stuff, their brain doesn't develop correctly. They live in what we call the downstairs brain, which is where fight, fight, or freeze. That's your caveman brain. Survival. I got to survival. I got to survive. Every day they get up, I got to survive. I got to survive. That's they're looking for a way to survive and make it through that day. Okay? So we have to work with teaching them how to get upstairs, which is where learning, cognitive thinking, emotional control, all that is upstairs. It's kind of like a good example. How many of your mamas, when your baby cried, what'd you do? You run and picked them up, right? What we tell our staff is we got to give these guys as many yeses as we possibly can before we have to give the hard no. And what I mean by that is when your child come into this world, when my children come into this world, when they cried and they needed something, we fulfilled that need, right? So we help them control their emotions up until a certain point. Okay, then about 3, 4, 5, they start helping you. You're co-regulating now, okay? Well, our guys live in the co-regulation all the time. Some of them we have to regulate their behavior for them because they can't do it. So we have to teach them the skill set to do that. And I had a really cool video that explained this a little better than I do, but because it takes me 36 hours to teach this, I'm just kind of giving you an overview of what we're doing. But what we're doing now is we've trained our staff how to work with our boys. We taught parents how to work with their kids. We've went into school districts and teaching schools about trauma-informed classrooms. Why is this kid always the one that causing problems in class? We went to Quanah and taught their special ed teachers in Quanah at the elementary school level. And when we go in there, we always pull up and look at the abuse history of the county they're in. And we look at poverty, we look at abuse, we look at all that stuff. In that one little bitty county was 75% of their population, their kids, come from an impoverished, neglect, or abuse. 75%. So that meant for a 20-room classroom, think about how many kids in there are struggling. And we talk to teachers about, you got this young kid. We have kids that are the oldest child. They had 4 younger to them. What were they doing when they were in an abused house? They didn't get fed. Who's taking charge? It's usually the eldest child. And we have a little poem that we read, and I don't know it word for word, but this young man gets his siblings up, feeds them breakfast, gets them dressed, brushes their teeth, gets them off to school, walks in to sit down, and he gets in trouble for not having a pencil. A pencil. We're teaching our teachers to know the history of their children. We have a section called mindfulness. Mindfulness is a lot of our new people when they come in. It's really interesting. I tell them when I interview with them, I say, I'm going to tell you something. You're going to learn things about yourself when you step into this world that you never knew. You're going to have history come up that you've never even thought about. And I've got a couple right now that are counseling because their past life is getting in the way of what they're doing. They have one young man that every time he does something, brings back a memory, that shield comes down and they can't work with that young man. So we're helping them work with their own past. So that's one of the things I had to face when I became a practitioner was learn about my past. Now, I had good parents, but there's a lot of things that happen. And I've got older couples. I had to change the way they're thinking because we don't use corporal punishment. We don't do it at school. We don't use timeouts. We don't send them to their room. We don't do that anymore. We do what we call a time in. A time in is where you say, okay, you need a few moments to regulate, to get your breathing going and calm down so we can talk. So you sit down right here, and I'm going to be right here doing dishes or cooking or whatever. And when you're ready to talk, you let me know, and we'll talk. And I teach my staff to shut the stove off, no matter what they're doing. If they got a need that needs to be met, we meet the need. Because that's where behavior comes from, is a need and not met. For years, child care has worked on behavior management programs to manage behavior. Well, now we know behavior is not the problem. Behavior is a symptom of a bigger problem, and it's a need not met. Good example, 5-year-old girl adopted from China. Mom's cooking supper. This is a true story. Mom's cooking supper. This kid, they've been working with this kid through TBRI with Dr. Purvis. And she comes into the kitchen and Mom's cooking supper, almost got supper ready. And she says, Mom, can I have a snack? Mom looked at her and says, no, not right now, baby. Supper's almost ready. She had a meltdown. Just went ballistic, kicking, screaming. Why? Anybody know why? All she heard was, no, you're not going to take care of me and I'm going to die. That's what went through that little girl's head because she went without meals. She knew what true hunger was like, and she had to scavenge her stuff. So what we tell our guys is, here, take that snack, hang on to it. After supper, you can have it. That's all it takes. That's all it takes. We had hoarders. Man, I can remember when I started out, I was a caregiver for 13 years with my wife. And our biggest battle was hoarding food in their room. Now we give them something that they can take that's in a wrapper and 99.9% of the time it lays on the nightstand and it's never touched. How many of you, I know a lot of you know Sidney Poitier, right? The actor. Did you know he was a kid from a hard place? He was. And he carries a candy bar in his pocket everywhere he goes because he knew what true hunger was. And that's how he kept himself focused and kept him moving forward, was having that in his pocket. Now, if y'all have any questions, if you guys are okay with it, you can ask me so that's what we do through Westview Family Services is we're training, we're teaching parents, we're counseling. We're going to expand it. We are actively looking for people to work in that office, and we're actively looking for LPCs, counselors to work for us. We are as of this year, we Sooner Care, which is Medicare for kids in Oklahoma. We are able to bill Sooner Care for our counselors. So what that means is when our counselor will start billing through us, so we get 20% of everything he makes. So that's going to be an income rest to help pay for Westview Family Services. So we are now bringing in revenue from our counselors and not having to pay for counseling, which is what we're doing right now. And we have a transitional program that's not too far in the future that we're going to restart. And we've got blueprints for houses, and we're actively looking for property in the Yukon Mustang area in Oklahoma because there's resources there. So we're working on that. Some of the things that's happened to us over the last, probably in about last 7 years, we have been given about $750,000 to rebuild our campus, and we opted to, instead of building new homes, we went in and redid our homes. I have a picture of one of them, of before and after, that I was going to show you. But we went in and put in new bathrooms for the boys, made them look more residential, put new kitchens in, and fixed up our kitchens, put brand new kitchens in all the houses. And that's 6 houses we put new kitchens and bathrooms in. We did the exterior of 7 houses. We have a 3-bedroom house that our ranch manager lives in, and we remodeled the exterior, put new siding on, painted the brick, done some decorative things to make them all look a little different because they all kind of looked alike. But we kind of brought them up. We put in landscaping around the houses, and we went ahead and put sprinkler systems in around our houses, so our houses have green yards. And the reason we want green yards is we had a fire about 1.5 years, 2 years ago that got within 3 miles of our campus. And we were a dry powder keg. We would have lost everything if it would have got to us. The only thing that stopped it was the North Fork of the Red River and very good firefighters. So we decided we're going to green up around our houses to protect the houses. So we put a new roof on our gymnasium, which is a WPA building. It's a historical building. So we're bringing it back into operation. We're still working on it. But we put a new roof on it and fixed all the bad windows in it and put a new fan in it and new doors. And now we're working on getting the interior up in good shape where we can start using it. We redid the front of our commissary downtown and did some work on our building in the office. And we did a mural in our office of from 1956 to, I think it was about in 2010, but it was primarily in honor of Burl Butler. How many of y'all know Burl Butler? Burl Butler was there 51 years. He retired at 51 years, and he started there in 1967. So we kind of told their story across there. So, but those are some of the things we're doing. We've got an endowment that was established by a gentleman by the name of Ralph Pickle. What time do I'll kind of shut this down for you? I know you guys know I can stay here all night if you wanted to. Ralph Pickle was a gentleman that when his wife passed away, they had no children. And in 92, he started sending our boys $25 for their birthday and $25 for Christmas in 1992. And I mean, he would hold us to the fire. If he didn't get a thank you within a week, he was calling us. How come these kids ain't writing thank yous? So he kept us to the burner. And I mean, he's a phenomenal man. And he got to where he'd just send us an amount at the first of the year, and we would divvy it out over the year, and we'd send thank yous. Well, in 2006, he come to us and said, I want to do a plan for Westview. So in 2006, we started working with him. We told him about our foundation. We have a Westview Foundation that supports the ranch and the animal programs and beautification projects on campus. And he said, no, don't want to do that. He says, I want to work directly with Westview Boys Home. So we started working with him, and he brought in his nephew, Randy Pickle, which is one of the development people for Baptist Homes in Oklahoma. So he became the trustee. Well, When it was all said and done, when he passed away in '07, and in '07 we got a notice from Randy called us and said that he passed away and he was working on his will. And we had no clue what he was going to do. Had no idea. Well, they called us and said, well, we got a 2012 Honda Civic that's only got 18,000 miles on it. Y'all need to come get it. So Ron and I drove down there and got it, and I drove it home. And that's what our manager of social services is driving right now. And then they sent us he liquidated some stocks. We got a check for about $156,000 that really helped at the time. And then all said and done, he set up the Ralph Pickle Endowment for Westview Boys Home with the Oklahoma City Oklahoma City Community Foundation is managing two endowments for us. One of them, when it started out, was $600,000, and that's Ralph Pickle's endowment, so that our boys would get their $25 for birthdays and $29 for Christmas. And he buys a pig, and the rest of it's for us to use. That endowment this year paid us right at $30,000 into our budget that we didn't normally have. Well, Randy said, well, we're going to do something different. He said, I'm going to hold back $100,000 and you guys raise money to start a Westview Boys Home endowment. So we raised, it's setting at $172,000. He went ahead and invested it all, but then he sent us stocks, transferred stock to us for, when it was all said and done, his estate was $1.5 million. This man left us to operate on. So we've got money in stocks that are generating income that if we need money, we can draw it. And then we have our endowment, which is growing, and then we have our foundation. But, COVID started. I know y'all, and we were really scared. When it hit in March and the stock market dropped, we thought, holy smokes. Oil field shut down. We have royalties. We didn't get our royalties. It's around 50, 60,000 a year. I think we got 4,000. And we thought, man, this is going to be a roller coaster ride. Well, we had the state that came through that we didn't even know about. It's $156,000. One of a church in Childress consolidated with other churches and sold their building. They sent us 60% of that. We come through all this so far in the black because of gifts, and we lost income. You look at but we did shut down. We haven't been going to church. We've been going to church virtually with our church, which is, we travel, it's 34 miles one way. So it's about 60, 70 miles round trip for our guys to go to church. So that cut our budget. So we've been really good. We do our grocery runs, which we have a commissary. A lot of that's donated. Everything in the commissary is donated except for what we buy from Food Bank, and we buy it at 10 cents a pound. So we buy 600 pounds a month of things that we don't normally get, and it helps offset chicken and things like that. We process probably 7 beef a year and about 6 pigs a year. That's what we feed our campus. Right now we're at 18 boys. We have a 24 capacity. Is where we're at. Y'all have any questions? A lot of our young men have been very successful. We have a DHS worker that works, a social worker for DHS. We have attorneys, we have doctors, we have military personnel. We have a young man right now that's serving in the Marine Corps that's a master sergeant, just got married. So we have a lot of successful guys out there over the years. I want to read a verse and talk a little bit about it. Oh, went too far. If I can find it. Before I read it, we do have a parenting program that we're doing with churches. We do have a program that we can come in and talk to young couples, foster families. It's called the Connected Parent and Child. We have done this with Um, Homa Church of Christ in Mustang and Cherokee Hills in Duncan. We did it with the youth minister had us come in and talk to his youth families. So if y'all are interested in that, our website is westviewboyshome.com, and I'll leave some cards and I'll leave some flyers and stuff that I have with me. But one of the verses that we focus on is Matthew 18:10 through 14. Y'all may be familiar with these verses. This is the story of the lost sheep. See that you do not look down on one of these little ones, for I tell you that their angels in heaven always see the face of my Father in heaven. What do you think? If a man owns 100 sheep and one of them wanders away, will he not leave the 99 on the hill and go look for the one that wandered off? And if he finds it, I tell you the truth, he is happier about the one sheep than about the 99 that did not wander off. In the same way, your Father in heaven is not willing that any of these little ones should be lost. The reason I read that scripture is because that's what we do every day, is we go out and look for that one. And I tell my people, and I've told myself and my wife, and I feel this way. If I've been doing this she's been doing it for 20, I've been doing it for 25. And I said, if we got one child that we have had in our care that is successful in life, turned their life to God, it was all worth it. One kid. And Westview, on average, is successfully helping 35 families a year get back together, reunificate, or sometimes we can't restore the family, so we have to help them reconcile. So I've got 3 kids on my campus that can't go home because it's just a volatile environment for them. They regress, so they've reconciled. I'm going to finish here. I'm going to love my family. I'm going to communicate with them. I'm going to go see them, but I'm never going to live with them again, which is hard. Sitting down with a 16-year-old kid and looking you in the eye and say, I ain't going to go home anymore because I know I can't make it there. That is a hard decision for a 16-year-old kid to make. And it's hard for us to allow them to make it. But sometimes we can't reach adults. That's the sad thing. So we spend our time day in and day out working for that one lost kid, the one that we can get back on his path. We sow the seed every day. Every day. We live it in front of them every day. Jesus is in their life every day. Now, do every one of our guys that leave our program get baptized? No. No. We have to turn that over to God's hands. I have a friend of mine that I grew up with that lived in Westview when I was a kid. And I even worked him after it was a long story, but took him 15 years of his life to figure out everything that he was taught. He said, it was like a light bulb. He said, I got up one morning and the light came on and he says, what are you doing, stupid? What about all this stuff you learned from all these good people and bad people? Because there are bad people in childcare. And every home has a history of not having adequate, good house parents, caregivers. He spent the day calling every caregiver he could get a hold of and thanking them for what they did for him. And he's been doing childcare for 23 years. He works for Tipton Children's Home. He's worked for Westview Home. He's worked for Sand Springs. He's dedicated his life to children because of what they did for him. Thank you guys very much. At this time, if there's anybody that would like to have prayers or anything like that, this is the time for that. Thank you.